What if I told you that for 11 hours, every crew member on a NATO supply ship was being watched from 60 meters below the water, and not a single sonar, radar, or satellite picked it up? The captain on the bridge was drinking his third coffee of the morning when a Russian officer 1 kilometer behind him and deep under the surface already knew the exact course, speed, and cargo of his ship down to the last container. It was a quiet morning in the western Black Sea, and the cargo vessel Atlantic Bridge was exactly where its schedule said it should be. The surface was gray, the visibility was around 12 kilometers, and the air temperature on deck sat just above freezing. The ship, a Panama-flagged civilian freighter under long-term contract with the North Atlantic Treaty Organization Logistics Division. It carried 32 containers of spare parts, communications hardware, and medical supplies. Captain Daniel Hargrove, a 51-year-old American officer with 24 years at sea, had made this same crossing 11 times before. He knew the weather, the waves, the radio traffic. He did not know about the shadow underneath him. The shadow had a name. The Russian Navy classified it as Project 636.3, an improved Kilo-class diesel-electric submarine, and its commander that morning was a 43-year-old captain, second rank, named Mikhail Tarasov. Tarasov was on his 9th underway mission in command, a veteran of deployments in the Mediterranean and the Baltic, and the kind of officer who, according to the people who served with him, never raised his voice and never rushed a decision. Tarasov had been at periscope depth since 3 in the morning, waiting. He was not supposed to be there. According to the official log filed at the Novorossiysk naval base, his boat was on a training exercise 40 nautical miles to the east. According to what actually happened, that log was written before the vessel even left port. The orders were verbal, the mission was classified, and only 4 people on the entire submarine knew the real assignment: track, observe, record, and do not interact. The Kilo class is a difficult boat to find. Running on batteries, it moves through the water at roughly 4 knots with a sound signature so low that some Western sonar operators describe it in private as a hole in the ocean. It does not glow on infrared. It does not ping. It listens. And for 11 hours, Mikhail Tarasov listened to the Atlantic Bridge. He heard the rhythm of the ship's single diesel-electric engine. He heard the faint vibration of the refrigeration units on deck. He heard the subtle change in pitch every time the autopilot made a small course correction. From that information alone, his sonar officer built a complete acoustic profile of the vessel, its load weight, and even an estimate of how much fuel it had remaining. Acoustic intelligence at this level is not a guess, and it is not a trick. It is the result of decades of Russian submarine doctrine being refined against exactly this kind of target, in exactly this kind of sea. On board the Atlantic Bridge, nothing felt wrong. At 9 in the morning, the first officer, a Norwegian named Lars Endresen, ran the daily radar sweep. The screen was clean. At 10, he checked in with an Allied maritime patrol aircraft flying high overhead. The aircraft confirmed no surface contacts within 40 kilometers. At 11, a satellite pass from a civilian Earth observation platform photographed the sea around the ship. The photographs would later be reviewed frame by frame by analysts in 3 different countries. They showed nothing unusual, only water, a calm, slightly overcast, completely ordinary stretch of water. The submarine was underneath all of it. Tarasov's doctrine that day was simple and ancient. In submarine warfare, the advantage almost always belongs to the side that knows the other side exists. The Atlantic Bridge did not know. That meant Tarasov could take his time. He could measure. He could document. He could, in the language of his own trade, build the problem. Or which is the phrase submariners use for the process of gathering everything you would need to act, without actually acting. Every 17 minutes, his navigator updated the relative bearing to the target. Every 30 minutes, his weapons officer rehearsed a dry fire solution on a fire control console that was deliberately kept offline. There was never any intention of using it, but the data it generated was filed, dated, and eventually sent to Moscow. By noon, the Russian command had in its hands a simulated engagement report that showed in technical detail how the Atlantic Bridge could have been engaged at 3 different points during its transit, and what the probability of success would have been at each. The probabilities, according to officers later briefed on the report, were uncomfortable for the West to read. Back on the surface, the morning on the Atlantic Bridge continued as planned. The crew ate lunch. A deckhand from Manila named Rafael took a photograph of a pod of dolphins near the starboard bow and sent it to his wife. It was the kind of photograph that sailors have been sending home for as long as cameras have existed on ships. And for Rafael, it was the highlight of the morning. He did not know that at roughly the same moment, a photograph of his ship, taken through a Russian periscope, was being reviewed by a commodore in a windowless office on the Crimean coast. Then, at 2 in the afternoon, Tarasov received a short coded message on the extremely low frequency channel. The message was 19 characters long. It said in effect that the observation window was closed. The data had been received. The mission was complete. Tarasov quietly ordered a course change away from the Atlantic Bridge. That day, the submarine dropped to a cruising depth and began a slow, silent turn to the east. The Atlantic Bridge kept sailing west toward its port of arrival in Constanța, Romania. It docked the next morning without incident. The cargo was unloaded. The captain took a scheduled 4 days of leave. He still does not know, and may never know, what happened on the morning of the transit. The report Mikhail Tarasov wrote did not become public, but fragments of it, according to later reporting by European defense journalists, circulated inside Russian naval intelligence for months afterward as a case study. The case study carried a single message, and it was not a message about the Atlantic Bridge. It was a message about every other ship still making the same crossing. And the sea looks empty. That does not mean it is. In the weeks that followed, Allied navies quietly began to expand their anti-submarine patrols across the western Black Sea. Sonar buoys were dropped more often. Maritime patrol flights increased. No official statement was ever made, and no incident was ever confirmed. But the pattern of behavior shifted, and experienced observers noticed. The Atlantic Bridge continued its schedule. The crew rotated, the cargo kept moving, and somewhere, in a classified folder in a Russian naval archive, a full acoustic profile of one civilian freighter sits on file, complete down to the last container. If this kind of story, the kind that happens under the surface while the world above sees nothing, is what you came here for, then you know what to do. Subscribe and turn on the notifications. But because every week we go deeper into the operations that shape this war without ever making the headlines. Leave a comment telling us which side of this story surprised you more, the watcher or the watched. And if you want to see the next case study in this series, one that takes place not in the water, but in the sky, the next video will tell you what actually happened that night. We will see you there.